Hold outside. Come over here. Go inside. Go inside. Go. Bye, buddy. So I really don't want to do this, mostly because I absolutely hate taking this thing apart. But I have had several people ask me to show them the internals of this thing, and I told them I was going to do it, so I'm going to do it. Now, the reason I'm doing it now is because I had picked up a set of helical DSG gears from Airsoft Mutations. They did a promotion type thing where they allowed techs to purchase them at a reduced price in order to test them and give input on how they could be better, or if they're good enough, or whatever the thing, right? Now, this is the third time I've installed those gears into this thing. The first two times I had huge issues and I was really upset because they're not cheap gears and I didn't think I could get them to work. And then today, come on, Nube. What do you want? You gonna help me out? Don't mind the cat. So this is the third time I put them in. The first two times, every time between shots, the spring for the piston would force the piston forward, and the anti-reversal latch wouldn't have enough contact with the bevel gear to actually hold it. So it was slipping, and it was causing all kinds of malfunctions with the gun. It was skipping shots. It actually cracked my piston, believe it or not. And I'll show that later when I open it up. The cracked piston is still in here. It's still working, so I'm not gonna worry about it. I really don't wanna take it apart. And since the crack isn't in a very stressful place from what I can see, I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but it doesn't seem to be affecting the way it works. And I'm not using a heavy spring in this either. It has a Garter SP120 because I do want to keep it at indoor limits because this is my main indoor gun. So indoor limits is perfect for this thing. I don't want it to shoot any higher than that. But the spring that's in here isn't heavy enough for the piston to be having any issues, for me to be worried about the piston cracking. So I'm just gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna open this up and show you guys exactly what I ended up doing, not only to get this to work, but just like the stuff that you need to do in order to upgrade a Vector. It is a Krytac, which a lot of people who have worked on or own Krytacs can tell you have these really weird proprietary sizes for things. Put a tracer back on here. Specifically the gears. A lot of people say that the gears on Krytac builds can't be replaced with standard V2 because Krytac has weird tolerances for their gears. So it makes it difficult to drop in a set of standard V2 spec gears. That is true. I did have to do some dremeling inside the gearbox to get them to fit. So that's kind of what I'm gonna go over. I'm not gonna lie, it's not a lot of stuff, but people keep asking to show it to them. So here I am. If you already know how to disassemble your Vector, just go ahead and skip as far as you need to get to the good stuff. This is literally just me opening this up right now. And it's honestly, it's pretty straightforward how to open this up. There's nothing super special about it. All the screws are very, very obvious. I will say these two screws don't need to come off. If you do take them off, all they do is keep this little thing in place here. And it's made out of plastic with metal screws. So if you over tighten the screws when you go to put them back on, you will end up stripping the screw hole and then it won't hold anymore. So just don't take those off. There's absolutely no need to take those two screws off. Leave them on. Don't strip your screw holes. Save yourself some trouble. All right. go. That's the upper coming off there. This plastic cover needs to come off. And I did actually, believe it or not, I took this apart literally maybe 30-40 minutes ago when I redid the modifications that I needed to do to get these airsoft mutation gears working. And I told myself I was going to figure this thing out. And I did, which I'm really happy with. These gears are freaking awesome. I will include a chrono video in semi as well as full auto so you can see what it's doing. That's why my chrono is sitting there. So I hope this video doesn't run too long because I don't want to waste your guys' time. This really isn't that complicated a thing. All right, so there's that plastic bit there. I'm not going to show you this part just because, like I said, this is very, very obvious stuff. I'm just going to remove these 2 screws right here, all 8 of these guys right here. I'm going to take these 2 off, but I'm going to leave these 2 on so that the barrel stays in place. If you want to put a max hop unit in here, you will have to remove these 2, and I'll show you the modification I did for that. But the barrel does need to come off if you want to do the modification to put a max hop unit in there. And then you have these 2 screws right here to remove the motor. So I'm gonna turn the camera off while I do that, and then I'll come back. I've taken all the screws out like I said I would, and here is what my insides look like. All right, there we go. Oh, this thing's stuck to the other side. All right, so here are the internals of this thing. Jesus, this thing is destroying my freaking tappet. Holy heck. So that's kind of an issue. I need to figure out why it's doing that, specifically right there, that you can see on my tappet there. I do have a spare tappet, but I would much rather not use it if I don't have to. So hopefully this one doesn't die on me. That might be an issue I have to figure out further down the line. But as of right now, every other issue I've had has been solved, so I'll worry about this one later because this is a brand new issue caused by the use of these specific gears. And I don't know what it could be that's causing it. So, piston. This is an Airsoft Mutations Jaeger piston. This thing is super strong. I don't know if you can see it right there. That's where it cracked. It's almost getting to the rack. It hasn't broken on me yet. I'm going to run it until it breaks, if it ever does break. If it doesn't break, yay for me. If it does break, I have a couple of non-Jaeger replacements on hand. So, Jaeger piston with the FPS, high rate of fire, piston head, which has a washer that comes with the piston head. Max cylinder, stock cylinder head because they're proprietary, FPS 2125 nozzle, max hop unit. I did buy the extended barrel for this, so I can use a 185mm barrel. And the reason I did that, actually I put this on at the beginning of the video, but we get that. That's my barrel right there. It comes right to the end of the cap for the blaster unit. So I like to keep my barrel flush, and I think it looks really good when that's not on there. Granted, I never play without it because when this is installed onto the Vector, it actually looks like that. So the end of the tracer unit is pretty close to flush with this handguard that goes on the outside, on the front of the thing. So these are the gears that I was talking about. I did short stroke them. You can see right here I removed 1 teeth. These come with 9 teeth stock. I took them down to 8. The bevel here is helical, as I mentioned. Spur, nothing super special there. And obviously the pinion is also helical because the bevel is helical. So those are the gears and the T238 motor. It does have this adjustment screw here. I don't actually know what it's adjusted to right now, but it has about a 30 T232 full auto rate of fire. So whatever that means, I don't know. I don't know the mathematics behind all of this stuff. I just put them together. So in order to fit a max hop unit, I'm going to start here from the front and work my way back. I had to square off the inside here. If you buy one of these brand new, this piece right here where the hop sits is stock. It's curved. So you have to square that off in order to get a max hop unit to fit. Now, I will say, I just eyeballed and free-handed the hell out of this thing with my Dremel and a circular cutting piece. Not the best way to go about it. If you have more refined tools that can give you a more accurate cut, definitely use those. I just happen to not, so I got to work with what I've got. But you have to cut this not only on this side, but on this side as well, which is kind of a given since it is symmetrical. So you can see here, hopefully, that I had to cut out a square rectangular portion right there. This is also an ME Pro, which usually comes with the clip, but the clip would get in the way of the mag. The way the mag sits in here, the clip would always cause an obstruction. So I'm not going to put the mag in yet because it does have BBs in there, but the clip would cause an obstruction and the mag wouldn't be able to go all the way up. So I not only had to cut the clip, I also had to super glue and epoxy the BB retention latch here so that it was constantly in the back position. I also took some, I don't know what it's called. It's like steel stick, I think is what it's called, by JB Weld. And I filled in the space. It's really, really hard to see there. I don't have a lamp on me either. Actually, let me see if my phone will work. So I don't know if that shows you right there, but the space in between the retention latch and the front of the hop unit has a little bit of gray material in there. That's that steel stick that I was telling you about. The easiest way to do it is to find something circular that has a decent diameter to fit into this, like that, and then just pack it with steel stick and just leave it until it cures. I have had to do this a couple times because the steel stick has fallen out on more than one occasion, but it'll hold and it will work, and I will do the chrono at the end, obviously, so you can see that this is all functioning proper. Nothing really special with this. That doesn't get modified. Nothing obviously with the cylinder. I polished this just to remove some of the friction that may have been caused by the paint or the finish or whatever this is in the gearbox. I don't know that it's really necessary, but I did it just to do it. Same with the track here where the tappet plate sits. I polished that as well on both sides of the gearbox. Now, these bearings are EZO bearings. These are not the stock bearings that came in the gun. However, I have been told that the stock bearings that come in Krytacs are J-cage steel bearings. So I would imagine they would work if you were to do a build like this with a set of DSG gears. You can see here that I dremeled out around the freaking bearings. A lot of people use bushings as well. Before I get to the point that I was making, a lot of people use bushings. A lot of the techs that I've asked have said that J-caged EZO bearings will withstand the stress caused on the system by a set of DSG gears. So I'm running with it. If they break, I'll do an update at some point, but they've been going pretty strong for a while. And I've had this thing DSG'd for a really long time as well. I just haven't had it brushless DSG'd. And that's really the big difference right now, is that this is now brushless. Whereas my old set, which is coincidentally right here, this is a ZCI 22, not the best motor ever, but it is brushed and it was working. Now, I was saying I removed some of the material around the bearings. As far as I know, you don't need to do that. I was just sort of experimenting when I bought this, and before I found out that you had to Dremel down right here in order to get your gears to spin properly, I thought, hey, what if I give it a little more lateral play on the gears by sort of removing some material on the bearings so they can sit lower in the gearbox. It didn't work. So don't remove any of the material in the bearings, just shave down right here. I'm not really sure how much in millimeters. I would say maybe like 2 or 3. Actually, that could even be like 5 or 6 millimeters of material that you have to remove from here. This is what's going to cause the issue with stock gears. The bevel and the spur are going to work fine, but the sector is going to have all kinds of issues with this piece right here if you don't Dremel this properly. So if you want to replace your stock Vector gears, Krytac gears, with something aftermarket, you have to remove some material from here in order to get it to spin freely. Or you can possibly end up breaking some stuff. So that's one of the big things that absolutely must get done in order to use aftermarket gears in a Krytac. And that's pretty much all on this half of the gearbox. Again, here you can see that some material has been removed around the bearings for the same reason as the other half. But I also removed some material here. And the reason I did that is because when I remove the material around the bearing here, what it did, obviously, it makes my gear now sit lower. So it was making contact with these parts here, and it was causing an obstruction. So if you don't remove the material around the bearing, you don't need to sand these down or Dremel them down. So just leave the bearing holes as they are, and you don't have to worry about those parts. Just a big FYI here. Now, one of the big things with this half right here is that I actually, and again, let me see if my flashlight works for this. You can see there, hopefully, that some material has been removed from the back of that hole and the front of that hole. And that hole is where the tappet plate sits. So when it's all closed up, the tappet plate sits like that, right? And the reason I did that, and I don't actually know that that's necessary either, but the reason I did that is because I actually broke like 4 of these before I figured this out. As the system cycles, what was happening is that the sector was still trying to pull the tappet further back than it was able to go. So it ended up snapping the post on my tappet a whole lot of times before I figured out what it was. And honestly, I didn't even figure it out. Somebody made the suggestion to me, so I made some modifications, and it turns out that that person was right. So, and what I mean by that is, as this was turning, oh, let me see if I can get it on there. So as this was turning, you would be able to tell that this would want to keep pulling the tappet further back. So the tappet would reach the end of its allotted travel given by the slot over here. But the spur gear, or I'm sorry, not the spur, the sector gear was still trying to pull it further back. So it would end up bending like that, or attempting to bend like that when the gearbox was closed. And because it couldn't, all the stress was being put on the post. So it ended up snapping the post off. Now, the first thing I did when I started having that issue was I drilled a little hole into my tappet post, and I hammered in a little piece of metal. That is what that little shiny dot you can see right there. It's a little piece of metal that goes the entire length of the post there. So that definitely helped because it reinforced it, but it wasn't the final solution. What I actually ended up having to do, and this is not a Vector tappet, obviously, as you can see, but the tappet fin shape on a Vector to another, to a standard V2 tappet is pretty much the same thing. So I'm going to show you here real quick what I actually ended up having to do. So this is the outline of a standard tappet plate fin, right? Roughly, that's what it is. And here is how mine looks. And it's obviously just based off of this. It's very apparent that there's a huge difference in the size of it, right? So obviously, if you're not familiar with DSG, you have to reduce the length of the fin. What do you want, cat? Are you gonna help me? I didn't think so. Anyways, so you have to reduce the length of the fin so that it will close properly and cycle properly with both the sector posts. But one thing, the main thing that was causing the issue was that this extra material here wasn't necessary. So you have to do this very, 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 very carefully so as to not mess it up. But you just have to remove some of the material there. like that. Thin the tappet fin a little bit, and that should solve your post snapping problem. That problem was only an issue when I tried to run it on full auto. If you only ever run it on semi, I don't know that you will have that issue. But on full auto, I mean, it's just slamming back and forth really, really fast. So it was snapping my posts, and that was the fix right there, was slimming the tappet fin a fair bit. So if you DSG your vector and you keep snapping your tappet fin or your tappet post, just shave off some of the material on the fin. Make sure you put a little circular, semicircular section right here at the bottom as a little step, and you should be good. And then the last thing, and this thing specifically pertains only to these gears, these airsoft mutation gears, and only as they are now. I don't know if airsoft mutation is going to adjust accordingly based on what I've said to them about this, but I have a video of this somewhere where I showed the difference between the bevel for the airsoft mutation gears and the bevel for my set of SHS gears.
Their new driving permit issued 2 weeks ago.
Alright, so you see how this bevel here is in constant contact with the anti-reversal latch as it spins. And this is with the mutations gears. You can see that there's that section right there where it's not making contact with the gear at all. So I'm assuming that it doesn't have enough surface area to catch properly, which is why it slips whenever it's fully assembled. So I guess I can't use these after all. But the cutoff lever, the anti-reversal latch wasn't engaging properly with my gears, and that's what was causing it to slip and having all those issues I was talking about the first 2 times I installed these gears into the Vector. So my solve for that was simple. I took my anti-reversal latch and I removed a fair bit of material here in order to allow it to move further back this way towards the back of the gearbox, which in turn allowed it to engage with the bevel properly. I do have a video where before I made the modification, compared the two, and it gives you a pretty good visual of what I'm talking about. So if you happen to pick up a set of these airsoft mutation gears and you have the same problem that I did, this is your solution right there. Just remove some of the material right here, exactly as it shows. So part of this flat edge right here and part of this flat edge over here. And I'll show a picture where I have, because I have a spare anti-reversal latch for some reason sitting. Actually, no, I don't have it. But I do have a spare anti-reversal latch sitting around somewhere, and I'll show a picture where I show how much material I removed to get it to work. But it works. So that was pretty much it. I think that's about everything. Obviously, you can see that I have the Perun for the Krytac installed as well. Big must. If you buy a Krytac Vector and you only have enough money to make one modification, 100% has to be that Perun. That thing absolutely changes the entire personality of the gun. I absolutely hated this thing for a really long time after I bought it, and I tried to sell it cheap. I was trying to get rid of it immediately. For whatever reason, nobody wanted to buy it, so I said screw it, and I just kept trying until I got it figured out. And now you got to offer me a little bit of money, a fair bit of money, in order to get me to agree to hand this thing off. The only thing about that is I hope that this is showing it, but you can see how the sticker here for the selector, I hope you can see anyways, it has some wear patterns from being turned. And what that has now caused is whatever setting I have for my second switch or second position on the selector, on the firing mode, my bad, that will also be the position or the mode that the first position is. So if I have this on binary, this will be binary as well. So in order to use it in semi, I have to have this part in semi as well, which really sucks because for a really long time I actually had this set to semi, binary, and full auto. Not that I ever used binary, but it was something cool to have, and now I have to have both of these set to semi. So I do have spare stickers that I can replace, but honestly, I'm sure it's going to happen again if I do replace a sticker, and I'm just not going to deal with it. So I'm just going to leave it alone. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This is an AirTag Studio adjustable trigger for the Vector, if anybody wanted to know. And I replaced this. I think it comes with a 25 stock. I put a 30 in there, and it's working great. So I'm going to reassemble all this and do the chrono, and I'll be right back. Before I do the final assembly, because I'm sure I'll forget if I don't mention it, this is one of the Real Deal's high strength springs. I believe he said they're rated up to like 9 pounds. I've heard people say you can buy them on McMaster car as well, but if you're doing a DSG, you definitely need a higher strength tappet spring, which can be done in one of two ways. Replace it with a high strength tappet spring like I've done, or take your stock tappet spring and cut coils off of it. Now, I have done that before, and I actually did that in this one initially, but the tappet spring broke. I was literally at an op, and I came up behind a group of like 15 enemy players, and the first one I tried to shoot, it was empty, and that was because my tappet spring broke. So instead of cutting coils, I would recommend just buying some heavier tappet springs. Real Deal sells them. I believe they're like $6 for a pack of 2 or something like that, so just go ahead and buy those. Is mostly put together with the exception of this piece, but it is currently unimportant. This is what it looks like fully assembled. Like I said, the tracer unit comes right up to the tip of the handguard here, which I personally think is a super clean look. It's the blaster unit, so it does have the flash. I absolutely love the way this thing looks and performs. So I'm gonna do the chrono test for you guys. All right, so I did the original half of the video a while ago, and I was not able to do the chrono because I actually somehow ended up breaking my MOSFET. So I had to get that fixed. I do have a spare MOSFET coming in from Perun, but for right now, this one has been repaired and it seems to be working all right. So I'm now going to do the chrono test, which I was not able to do last time. This is, I believe it's a SP120 spring. I may be wrong. I know I like to keep my guns low. I don't want it to be at 400 FPS because I don't want to have to swap springs between indoor and outdoor games. Buddy, are you coming in here? So, because of that, I like to just keep them at 350 FPS. Plus, at 350 FPS, these things still have really good range and accuracy, so I don't mind keeping them that low. But here is the chrono. So, again, this is the Vector with the DSG gears by Airsoft Mutations and the Perun MOSFET. So that's that. So the Vector is finally done. It's been a long road. I've had a lot of issues with this thing, but I am very happy with how it turned out. The video will include chrono and modifications that I had to make that I wasn't able to show in the video. I have pictures of this stuff. I'll just make sure to include them in the video somewhere. I broke my MOSFET, as I mentioned right before or during the chrono video section, but I was able to get it fixed, and I found out that the reason it broke was because the anti-reversal latch, apparently because of the modification that I had to make to it to get it to fit in the, or with the Airsoft Mutation gears, because of that modification, there wasn't enough clearance for the anti-reversal latch to be able to move without striking the one of the capacitors on the MOSFET. So I found a local electrician, he fixed it up for me, and it seems to be working very well now. As far as that modification that I had to make, this surface right here, so this thing, the anti-reversal latch sits with this notch towards the right half of the gearbox if you were pointing it forward. So you have to remove some of the material from this side of the anti-reversal latch. Now, it's not a lot, it's like 1 or 2 millimeters, just to give it that extra clearance so that it doesn't hit that capacitor and end up breaking it again. So if you end up buying the airsoft imitation gears and you want to do this with your own Vector, just keep that in mind. All the modifications that you need to do to your Vector for the airsoft imitation DSG gears will be in the video somewhere in there. But just keep that in mind. It's a lot easier, honestly. They're really good gears, but I think they're not worth the trouble for a Vector. If you buy them, use them in anything else. Use them in an AK, use them in a M4, M16, whatever. Use them in anything else. I wouldn't recommend them for a Vector. If you're going to do a Vector DSG, stick to SHS gears. They're good enough and they'll perform just as well as far as I know. The only difference is, and the reason that I wanted the airsoft imitation gears, is that they have the helical pinion and bevel, which SHS doesn't have a set that comes with that already. I believe if you wanted to do that with an SHS gears, you have to buy the Lonex pinion and bevel that are helical, and I've heard that the bevel can fail. I don't know if it's true. I've only done one build with the Lonex helical gears, and it's going pretty strong so far, so I'm not sure how accurate that statement is. But yeah, that's it. It's done, and this is what it looks like when it's all put together. Obviously, I don't have my battery cap here, so the battery is currently just dangling out from there. But if you do need a battery for it, this is what I would recommend if they're available in your country. They're HPA airsoft, high pressure airsoft, or high performance airsoft. That's what they're. High power, my bad. High power airsoft batteries, 1450 milliamp, 30C. So they have really good discharge rate, and they're small enough to fit in your battery space here. Even if you don't have the battery cap, I think this will still fit, or the extended battery cap. I do believe this will still fit. Don't quote me on that though, but it may work. With the battery cap, it will 100% fit. And this is the widest battery that you can fit in here. So pretty much the highest capacity that you can get in here, unless you do the stock conversion. I don't have the knowledge or skills to do that, or the tools for that matter of fact, so I'm not even going to worry about it. This battery usually lasts me a day, or enough to get through a day, so I'm just gonna leave it alone. But I'll dry fire it for you guys since I'm already here. And I got the binary, and then the full auto. So there you go. If you have any questions about my Vector, feel free to get in the comments and ask. Thank you for watching.